But I thought you hated this.
Well, because you talk about big women, are you this fine, muscular man with a nice chest and nice arms? And
I never claimed to be that. I have money.
Well, do you have money?
Yeah, I have money.
Well, see, where I work, I'm a waitress. A lot of big men have money, you know, and they're very generous. They're very friendly. But I don't understand why you come out with big women and just, you know, their clubs.
I can afford better.
I'm not that big. Let me just say that. I'm 5'9". I weigh about 190. So
That's pretty big.
I'm chunky.
No, that's beyond chunky, dear.
You really think so?
Oh, please. That's like 50, 60 pounds minimum.
She's a picky.
But I work. I hustle my ass. I take care of my family.
But that doesn't mean you're not fat.
That's true. Shut up, Tom.
See? And you know it's true, right?
Well, let me see. Describe yourself, Tom.
I'm fat.
How fat are you?
I'm pretty fat. I don't even know.
How tall are you, Tom?
I'm 5'11".
How fat are you?
I don't know. I'm fat.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate yourself?
I don't know, about a 1.
Tom, you're full of crap.
That's why I'm on the radio, because I'm hideous. If I were really attractive, I'd be on TV, making real money.
That's not true because
instead of the chump change this place pays.
Not all attractive people are anchor persons.
I'm not talking about being an anchor person. Are you kidding? I'd be in the movies. I'd be on Friends or something like that. I wouldn't be doing some Dobie radio show. I'd be making real money.
Well, Tom,
So you thought, now who's that coaching you over there?
Nobody's coaching me. I have my son in my car and my boyfriend in my car.
Well, he's talking to somebody over there.
I know you have a beef with my boyfriend because he is 23 and he'll be 24 in October, and like I said, I'm 30.
He must really like the beef.
But
you're like a living rump roast.
But don't you always say, don't have a boyfriend till you're 25 and blah blah blah? Don't you always say that?
Well, you're 31. It says here on the screen.
I'm on the screen.
There's a computer screen in front of me. It says your age is 31.
Yes, I am. I'll be 31 in November.
You're way beyond 25. You can have a boyfriend.
That's 25?
You're beyond 25, aren't you?
What? Yes, I am, but my boyfriend is only 24.
Well, he shouldn't have a girlfriend, especially a fat girlfriend. What is he, poor?
He keeps calling me fat. Well...
He probably doesn't make any money, right?
Well, it's true.
How much? Right? That's the whole point. The reason he's with you is because he doesn't make enough money to be able to afford a slim, attractive girlfriend. If he had money, he wouldn't be with you. You know that, right? By the way, you got to tell him to turn the radio off over there because it's really annoying.
It's annoying.
You got to have it. No, Dino told you to turn it off, and it's supposed to be off.
He did. I want him to hear you tell me what you're saying. He can't hear you.
Yeah, but you know what though? Then he should have gone somewhere else with a radio because we can't talk if you have the radio turned up.
Okay, well we're discussing this. Okay, I love your show actually. I don't hate you.
Well, there's no reason to hate me.
Well, that's what you said.
All I do is tell the truth on this show.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
See? I mean, you're having a hard time telling me you hate me. You can't do it.
Because I don't.
Mm-hmm. Now, you realize, again, we were in the middle of this, and then the radio interrupted us. You realize, you never responded to this. I want to make sure we understand this. You realize if your boyfriend made good money, he wouldn't be with you.
Do I realize that if my boyfriend made good money, he wouldn't be with me?
Right. He'd be with a slim, attractive woman.
You would be with a slim, attractive woman. Do you got that? Those are words from Tom Leykis. All these people
he knows that if he agrees with me, he's not getting any tonight.
Are you agreeing? He's saying, are you agreeing? The women flash themselves for men for Tom all over the friggin' world.
That's right.
So,
he's right about that.
There's a lot of people listening to this, and he's saying that if you made a lot of money, you would be with a slim, thin, nice woman.
I didn't say white woman.
No, I didn't mean to say white. I meant nice women. Is that true? Speak up. Come on, Tom. He has no comment.
No comment. I think we know the answer.
You know what? He's got a big smile on his face, but no comment.
I think we know the answer, don't we, Erica?
Tom said, you know the answer, don't we? Tom, excuse me.
See, now you're starting to hate me, aren't you?
English. No,
now you're starting to hate me.
From Los Angeles, it's the Tom Leykis Show.
Exactly.
And now, here he is, Tom Leykis.
Thank you for tuning into the Tom Leykis Show.
This is where America gets together to talk about the issues you really care about. It's a different kind of a radio talk program. We're the radio talk show that is not hosted by a right-wing wacko or a convicted felon. No. I am your host. Write down our toll-free telephone number. You're going to need it. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being part of our program. Here we are together again on the radio. And before we do anything this hour, I want to let our listeners in Southern California know that you're hearing this hour now. And then you are going to hear Howard Stern live from Las Vegas beginning at 4 o'clock Pacific time. And you know that this show has been on the air for 9 years in May. And we have been on 97.1, the FM talk station. Well, we're in our 6th year. And if you are a regular listener to this show, you know that we don't have guest hosts on this show. We don't have fill-ins or substitutes on this program. Even when I'm on vacation, you continue to hear me doing the show. I am the one and only person who does the Tom Leykis Show. That's it. There's one person on earth that we happily step aside for. It happens about once a year, and that's the king of all media. We step aside for him, and we will always step aside. If Howard Stern wants to be on an afternoon drive for a couple of days, what am I going to say? No? Please. So a number of you were kind of surprised by this yesterday when it happened because, frankly, I didn't know that yesterday was the day it was happening, or I would have told you yesterday. So I'm telling you now. This is for Southern California only, okay? There are some cities where Howard's on a competing radio station, but in L.A. we're on the same radio station. And Howard is doing his show from Vegas today and tomorrow, and so you will hear it live in the afternoon, beginning at 4 o'clock Pacific time. All right. And then what will happen is we will do the rest of the show here on the network, and you'll hear it immediately following Howard Stern tonight, sometime after 8 o'clock. So you just keep your dial tuned right here, okay? That's all you have to do. Howard Stern at 4 o'clock, and then we will return with the rest of the show following Howard tonight. That's our deal. That's tonight and tomorrow. And then on Friday, we go back to the regular schedule in Los Angeles. The rest of the country, this stuff is irrelevant to you. For example, in Seattle, Howard's on another radio station. Okay. So don't even pay attention to what I'm telling you. The entire show will run as scheduled. All right. Now, of course, just the fact that I said that means that a number of you will start calling and asking what's going on and stuff. No, come on, I just explained it. All right? Please. Anyway, in this live hour we have in Southern California, I want you to hear live what we talked about yesterday, which you may have heard last night on 97.1, the FM talk station, or maybe you didn't know we were on last night following Howard Stern, which we were. But we have told you over the years about the state of Washington and how dating a single mother is not only bad for any number of reasons. They have children, they have baggage, they have saggage, you know the deal. But also because there are men in the state of Washington who are paying child support for children that are not theirs. And we've given that laundry list of reasons why you should not date a single mother. Many people in California have called our show and said, well, Tom, I don't live in Washington. I live in California, so I'm going to date a single mother anyway. Well, the worst has happened. We talked on the air yesterday about a man named Sean Pedregon. We talked with his attorney, Ed Montgomery of San Bernardino. And it turns out that this Sean Pedregon was married to a woman who had a child. And she started calling the kid by his last name. They went on to have another child together, and then years later they split up. Well, long story short, the California State Court of Appeals has ordered Sean Pedregon to pay child support on the child that isn't his. Because they say he acted like the father. Because the kid was lied to by his mother, does not know that he has a father in prison. Your kid does not know that his father is Enrique Zaragoza, and he's in prison right now. I don't know if the kid's a listener, but your dad's in prison, kid. All right? That's the deal. And if anybody knows this kid, please let him know his dad's in prison. His real dad's in prison, and the guy they've been saying is his dad is not his dad. You know what I'm saying? Kid's name is David Pedregon. If you go to school with him, please let him know. Just to make this more interesting, okay? Mom's ex is a convict. Anyway, bottom line here is this. We have announced on the air now, it's official. If you're in the state of California, boys, you cannot date single mothers because you'll end up paying. Now, this could end up being a precedent. And when we come back, we're going to talk with Carnell Smith, executive director of a group called U.S. Citizens Against Paternity Fraud. He was here in California testifying in Sacramento yesterday in favor of a bill to outlaw paternity fraud called State Bill 1030. And their website is paternityfraud.com. And you go to blowmeuptom.com, you'll find that link. But Carnell Smith is going to tell us about this bill because now in California, a precedent has been established. A man who was not the father of a child, and both sides acknowledge it. It's not like there was DNA evidence or anything. Both sides know that this guy is not the father. Now this guy's been ordered to pay child support. We'll talk about this coming up.
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866.
You know what? The only time I want to see a woman hot and sweaty is when she's looking around my bedroom for her panties while I call her a cab.
There we go, baby. You're absolutely right.
The Tom Leykis Show.
Tom Leykis. Only on Hot Talk 1080 KOT.
Tom Leykis Show, 1-800-5800-TOM. All right? They've given you documented evidence why you should not date a single mother now, not only in the state of Washington, but also the state of California. With us, Carnell Smith, Executive Director of U.S. Citizens Against Paternity Fraud. Thank you for being with us.
How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing okay.
Well, that's good. Greetings to you from Atlanta, Georgia.
Thank you so much. Let me start with a very simple question. Is paternity fraud illegal anywhere in the United States?
Not at all. In fact, it's actively encouraged and actually supported by most states.
So when you say actively encouraged, how do they do that?
Very simple. None of the states actually make a requirement for moms to make a disclosure. And what we define paternity fraud is those situations where a man doesn't know that he's not the biological father, unlike a little bit like that case that we're talking about today. Many of the men are actually what we consider to be tricked by the mother and trapped by the law.
It is interesting how if you commit murder, they can come back with the DNA evidence anytime, forever, and charge you with a crime. Mm-hmm. You can be on death row for 40 years, and they can find DNA evidence that frees you from prison, and it's been done many times. Guys have left death row because we found out they were not the murderer decades later.
Yes.
A woman can come to your door 17 years and 364 days after giving birth to a child you never knew you had. Absolutely. And say, I know you're the father, I can prove it, and I want 17 years and 364 days of back child support, and you have to pay it with penalties and interest.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, if a man finds out because he gave his wife the benefit of the doubt, or his girlfriend, if he finds out in some states 2 years and a day, or 1 year and a day, or 6 months and a day after the child is born, that the child was not his, he's stuck for 18 years or more of child support.
And that's patently unfair.
It's outrageous.
To say the least.
Now, who are, and I ask this question all the time, maybe you have an answer for me, who are the political forces who keep things the way they are? Who's fighting against you?
Organizations like the National Organization of Women, the Gay and Women Lesbian League, and a few other organizations that believe that child support should be paid just on mom's say-so.
And now think with me for a second. We know, and as women's groups will tell you, the vast majority of state governors are men. The vast majority of state legislators are men. The vast majority of United States senators, men. Vast majority of congressmen are men. Why are the laws so against men?
My personal opinion, I think we have a lot of men who are in office who are afraid to offend the women who are more concerned with not equalization of laws, but some have gone so far as to want superiority. Now, if we could get more of the men to step up to the plate and say, wait a minute, we want equalization, but you cannot just run over another person's rights to the exclusion of you getting your own agenda. I mean, we don't allow it in anything else that I know of.
It's outrageous. And, it's one thing to go after somebody who has an obligation and isn't paying. The ways we do that and the fairness of it is a whole other debate. But, if somebody's legitimately the father and there's a legitimate formula that everybody's agreed on for child support, and that guy's out hiding, and he's had opportunities to visit with his child, and he's still not paying, I'm thrilled that we have laws to go after guys like that. The problem I have is that we go after guys who didn't have children, who DNA is in no way involved, and now in California a precedent has been established for a man who is not the biological father. We always knew it. The guy always knew it. His wife always knew it, or now his ex-wife always knew it. And now he is being forced to pay child support. How in the world? What's the law that allows that to happen?
Well, actually, California is perhaps the worst state for the what they call parentage by estoppel, or where a man acts in the capacity of what they call locus parentis, where the guy holds himself out as being the father of the child. But in this particular case, though, mom is the party who has allowed this to take place. Mom is the person who knew this guy wasn't the kid's father. Mom is the one who has allowed the kid to be waylaid and misled. But yet mom is going to be allowed to profit from something she aided in, she participated in, but only the guy is responsible. There's something that doesn't equal justice here.
Yeah, it's pretty outrageous. Now, this bill in California, SB 1030, what is it all about?
Well, Senate Bill 1030, and let me just say this is our second attempt with our nationwide group and working with several groups in California, the American Coalition of Fathers and Children, National Congress of Fathers and Children, a few of our paternity fraud groups. This is a second attempt to bring the issue of paternity fraud out into the forefront. And this bill specifically helps and addresses a situation called default judgment. Because unlike this situation with the Pedregon case, in California, you can be, in fact, Tom could be declared as the father of someone's kid. And because Tom doesn't make it to that first trial, Tom can be declared a father at the stroke of a pen.
It's outrageous. We're going to continue with Carnell Smith, and your calls are coming up.
The Tom Leykis Show. Only one radio station.
This is the Tom Leykis Show.
Yes, it is. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. We are here with Carnell Smith, Executive Director of U.S. Citizens Against Paternity Fraud. We also bring in Attorney Jeff Leving. He drafted a bill in Illinois regarding paternity fraud. And, Jeff, thanks for being with us.
Pleasure for me to be on the show.
Tell me about your bill in Illinois. By the way, you probably have not heard our show, but we are definitely a show that's aimed at men, and we talk to men who get dinged for child support all the time, and lots of guys who pay child support for children who are not theirs either because they got the DNA evidence too late, a woman successfully fooled or defrauded them somehow, or in cases in Washington State where, and of course I guess now we'll be hearing from them in California, where they both sides know that the guy is not the father, but they end up paying anyway because the guy was dating the woman and met the kids and hung out with the kids and took the kids to a ball game and well, once the kid said, "Can I call you Daddy?" That made him Daddy, and he had to pay. So we hear from all kinds of guys like this, and the guys are very interested in knowing what's going on with this.
Well, unfortunately, men have little rights in domestic cases, and I believe you had Carnell Smith on earlier.
He's on now. He's on with us right now, yeah.
How are you doing, Carnell?
Good, good.
Yeah, I know Mr. Smith very well, and I represented him in the U.S. Supreme Court, and he's a real good guy. The problem we have in our country is paternity fraud is okay. I drafted a bill in Illinois which passed the full House of Representatives, which will hopefully criminalize paternity fraud. No state in this country criminalizes paternity fraud. Illinois will hopefully become the first. California will hopefully follow. My bill, as I drafted it, makes paternity fraud a crime. If a woman lies to get a paternity order against a man who is not the biological father, and she does this in court, she can go to jail up to a year. And if she is a witness who participates in the fraud, that witness can go to jail right along with her. And we need this to eliminate or at least reduce paternity fraud in our country.
Why don't we simply, and I know that DNA testing is expensive, but I have to imagine there would be economies of scale. Why don't we simply demand a DNA test for every live birth in the United States?
We should, and the next bill I intend to work on is a bill which will require DNA testing in all paternity cases. And it should be mandatory because too many women will pick the man with the deepest pockets to father their children and cut out the biological dad, and that needs to stop. And we need to mandate paternity testing, or DNA testing in all paternity cases. And I have an article which I wrote, which was published on this subject on dadsrights.com, which is a website I put together, and this article explains why it's so important to eliminate fraud, and also why it's so important to have paternity testing required. If you look at this case in California, the Pedregon case, I mean, it's unbelievable that a man who is not the biological father of a child is ordered to pay child support.
It shouldn't be.
And it shouldn't be.
Are you guys aware, though, that this has been going on in the state of Washington for years?
It's been going on in every state for years.
Now, I was not aware of that.
Yes. Well, the problem is that the California Supreme Court, by deciding that any man should pay child support for another man's child, and there has been no legal adoption, the court is providing a financial incentive to mothers to pick men with the deepest pockets, and that can motivate women to commit fraud. Mm-hmm. I just hope this Pedregon case ends up in the U.S. Supreme Court where it belongs. And again, dadsrights.com has a lot of good information about paternity fraud.
Right. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just to get this straight, I believe the Pedregon case, the decision we're talking about was the California State Court of Appeals. I don't think it's gotten to the California Supreme Court yet.
It needs to get to the California Supreme Court, but it will probably be unsuccessful there, and it's going to have to get to the U.S. Supreme Court to really have a chance of prevailing on the merits, because I believe that California is strongly influenced by feminists, by very, very powerful feminists. So we have to get this eventually out of the California Supreme Court and into the U.S. Supreme Court. This decision in the Pedregon case, I don't think would ever have happened in Illinois, but California is a very unusual state, and believe me, I represented a dad in San Bernardino County, and I was glad to get out of California and get back to Illinois, because California is very, very pro-female.
One wonders why, because, let's face it, there's very few women today who would identify themselves with the feminist movement. That wasn't true in the 70s, but I think today, in the 21st century, the vast majority of women would say, I'm not a feminist. I don't think of myself as a feminist. They don't belong to feminist organizations. Why do all the majority of male politicians bow down to feminist organizations? Why?
Because women get involved in the political process, and to not curry to the female population is to lose votes.
Carnell is correct. It is politically correct to to seek out judicial decisions, legislative initiatives that support the rights of women. And sometimes the rights of women do not coincide with the rights of children and the rights of dads and non-biological men and non-biological fathers.
Hey, you know something I can point out too, Tom, is that this is also a case of gender bias because, see, if a stepmom allows a kid to call her mommy, they don't go after her for child support.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. That's like man bites dog when you hear of a woman. Even when women are ordered to pay child support, they rarely pay, from what I can tell.
You're absolutely correct. And if you look at the statistics, there is a higher child support delinquency rate among non-custodial moms as compared to non-custodial dads. And two, judges are very hesitant to even order women to pay support. I represented a father in a custody case. It was a difficult case. The judge gave the dad custody. I was able to get him custody of his 3-year-old boy, but the judge would not order the mother to pay a dime of child support. If the gender roles were reversed, that wouldn't have happened.
We're going to take a break here. We're going to come back. Carnell Smith is the executive director of U.S. Citizens Against Paternity Fraud. Attorney Jeff Leving has drafted a paternity fraud bill in the state of Illinois, House Bill 2267. His website is dadsrights.com. Carnell Smith's is paternityfraud.com. They're both linked to our website, blowmeuptom.com. We'll take some of your telephone calls coming up next, toll free at 1-800-5800-TOM.
Peter Gabriel.
We are here with Carnell Smith and Jeff Leving. And your telephone calls at 1-800-5800-TOM. Laura on the Tom Leykis Show. Hannah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I think you're wonderful, Tom.
Thank you.
I have a question for the lawyer. If the laws that you're suggesting are put into place, what happens to if a woman and man enter into having a child, the man knows the child is not his, they're married, they have the child, they raise it for a number of years, they get divorced, will the man be able to get out of paying child support just because he's not the biological father?
Get out of paying it?
He should never pay child support unless he formally adopts the kid.
Well, but he entered into the relationship and agreed to raise the child as his own.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
The question that you're asking, the answer depends on what state you're in. If the man is in California, chances are he will get hammered. Mm-hmm. If he was in Illinois, the opposite would probably occur, and he probably would not end up paying child support. So it depends on the state. California, I think, is very, very pro-female. And I have friends that live in California, and the best advice I've given them is to stay out of relationships.
Certainly stay out of relationships with single mothers. That is deadly. We've been preaching against that on this show for years, and now you've got documented evidence that this could be very, very expensive.
I have another question. What if the man and woman are married and the woman is, say, raped and they decide to have the child for one reason or another? Is the man considered the father? Is he required to adopt the child?
He is not required legally to adopt the child.
Is he considered the father?
Should be his choice.
That should be, exactly, Carnell Smith is correct. That should be his choice, not the court's choice. However, in California, it can be the court's choice, not the man's choice. However, if the man wants to be the biological father, then he should adopt.
Okay. To make it legal, he should adopt.
Exactly.
Right.
Otherwise, what does adoption mean? I mean, why do you even need to adopt? What's the point of adopting a child if you're going to be saddled with that responsibility anyway? It would be like making a man, of course, we've been through this too, it'd be like making a man pay alimony who never married you. I mean, what does marriage mean if you have to pay alimony when you break up anyway?
Right. So the woman would be able to protect herself by asking the man she's with to adopt the child.
She's already able to do that.
Right.
Right. That's what, yeah.
But when the man says no, you know what? When the man says no, he's sending a message. Either I want to see if this relationship works out, or I don't want to get stuck for the tab, or I'm just being nice to you as long as this lasts, and if it doesn't last, I'm not obligated to be nice anymore.
Hey, Tom, and thanks to No Fault Divorce, I can tell you from our group, we'd never recommend to him to take that step.
No, believe me, I would not either, and I take it a step further. Laura, think about this. The way the law works and the way it's going, you could be a man in a relationship who took on a woman's baggage, including a child or children that she had from previous relationships, and there you are home babysitting her children by some other man while she's out banging some other guy. You find out about it, and this woman can come home and say, all right, I'm leaving. I'm taking the kids who you've developed a relationship with. Then now I'm going to go off with the man I'm having sex with, and then I'm going to nail you for child support for the 2 kids I have with some other guy.
Absolutely.
But how are we going to develop laws that'll prevent that from happening and then protect the kids that really deserve the support?
Maybe, first of all, mom should keep her pants on. That's number one. Why should we be protecting women who want to go out and screw around on their boyfriends and husbands and then rewarding them with cash payments? I don't understand that thinking.
Yeah, the system at times rewards immorality and unethical conduct, and the children often suffer. In a lot of these cases where duped men are ordered to pay child support for children that aren't theirs and the biological fathers are completely cut out, how does that affect the children? You know how it affects the children? If you look at the top of page 46 and 47 of my book, Father's Rights, you'll see the statistics. Fatherless children are more likely to abuse drugs, commit suicide. Little girls that are fatherless are 900% more likely to become victims of sexual abuse and rape. So what benefit is our system providing our children when they put our children in positions where they are more vulnerable to become victims of child abuse?
Laura, thank you for the call.
1-800-5800-866.
God bless you.
Highly unlikely, but thank you for the thought anyway. I appreciate it.
The
Tom Leykis Show at 1-800-5800-TOM. Here's our telephone number. Jolena, you're on the Tom Leykis Show with Carnell Smith and Jeff Leving. We're talking about paternity fraud and the laws that people are trying to make this illegal, and that we at the Tom Leykis Show support these laws. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good.
The reason I'm calling is I heard you guys mention a Pedregon case.
Yes.
And Mr. Pedregon is my fiancé. So I know firsthand what he's had to go through with the court system, and nobody wants to have him heard. And, you know, I think it's great that you guys are doing this to support the parents that really aren't the biological father of these children.
While we have Jolena on the phone, let me ask both of you a question, because I don't know what the laws are in California right now. Maybe you know a little more than I do, or certainly other states. If she marries Sean Pedregon, is it possible that her income could be considered in calculating child support being paid to his ex-wife's son by another guy?
Up until about 1994-95, her salary would have been computed in the child support guideline, but in most other states, like Georgia and a few other states, her salary would get counted in there. Jeff, how about Illinois?
Well, for instance, in Illinois, the mother's income is relevant because it reflects on her ability to contribute to the expenses of the child. So according to the law, a mother's income is relevant, but based on how the law is applied, it generally isn't, because there are minimum support guidelines, and most judges are in a hurry, and they really don't look at the income and expense statements for mom and dad, and they generally just look at the support guidelines, and if there's one child in Illinois, it's 20% of the dad's net income, and that's often what they order, and that's why it's important to have a competent lawyer that'll slow the judge down and get him to look at the income and expense statements. So if a support order should be entered below the guideline amount, the judge does it, or the dad could walk out paying a lot more child support than the child needs.
Let me get one more in here. Jolena, thank you for checking in with us. John on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
How you doing, John? Great show, great show.
Thank you.
Hey, question about a couple months ago, you were talking about sperm donors and how women sometimes are tracking down the donors and suing for child support. Now, is that true or no?
Yes, that is happening.
Where can you look up this information?
Quite a bit of it's available on the web. In those cases where there were gay and lesbian parents who had actually had a friend who was involved but who didn't help with the natural process but just donated the sperm.
Right.
Some of these men actually wanted a relationship with the kids, And so these men are now being obliged to pay child support.
Attention, David Crosby.
Where can you find this on the web?
Well, you're familiar with Google.com. There's various search engines.
If you have a problem finding that information, you're welcome to give me a call. All you have to do is dial 312-356-DADS, D-A-D-S, and I'll help you. And keep one thing in mind. Fathers are considered too often biological necessities but social accidents in our society.